Welcome to this gentle exploration of how we learn. As you settle in and let your mind relax, we'll journey through some fascinating insights about the human brain and how it acquires new skills. There's no need to remember everything. Just let these ideas wash over you like waves on a shore. Let's begin. Fact 1. The brain learns patterns faster than details. Our first insight is both simple and profound. The brain learns patterns faster than details. Think about the last time you learned to navigate a new neighborhood. You didn't memorize every single house, every tree, every lamppost. Instead, your brain picked up on patterns. The coffee shop on the corner, the park after 3 blocks, the way the street curves near the school. This is because our brains are pattern recognition machines. Our ancestors didn't survive by memorizing every leaf in the forest. They survived by recognizing patterns, the pattern of animal tracks, the pattern of weather changes, the pattern of which plants were safe to eat. When you're learning a new skill, your brain is constantly searching for these patterns. Learning a language, your brain notices that certain sounds often go together. Learning to play guitar, your fingers start to recognize chord shapes as patterns, not individual finger positions. This is why, when you're learning something new, it helps to look for the underlying patterns first. Don't get lost in memorizing every detail. Step back. Look for what repeats. Look for the rhythm, the structure, the framework. The details will fill themselves in naturally once the pattern is clear.
Our third fact might seem unusual at first. Struggling a little improves memory. We tend to think that easy learning is good learning. Something comes quickly and smoothly, we feel successful. If we have to struggle and strain, we feel like we're failing. But the opposite is actually true. When your brain has to work a bit harder to retrieve information or solve a problem, it forms stronger connections. It's similar to how your muscles grow stronger when they're challenged, not when things are easy. Scientists call this desirable difficulty. The key word is desirable. It's not about making things impossibly hard or frustratingly difficult. It's about that sweet spot where you have to reach a little, where you have to think, where the answer doesn't come immediately but does come eventually. Imagine learning to play a song on the piano. If you only practice the parts you already know well, you'll get very good at those parts, but you won't improve overall. But when you slow down and work through the challenging sections, when you stumble and have to figure out the right fingering, when you play the wrong note and have to correct yourself, that's when real learning happens. This struggle creates what researchers call retrieval strength. Each time you have to work to remember something, you're actually making that memory stronger and more permanent. So the next time you're learning something new and it feels difficult, don't be discouraged. That difficulty is a sign that deep learning is taking place. Let's explore our fourth insight, which might bring you some comfort. Forgetting is part of learning. This feels wrong, doesn't it? We think of forgetting as the enemy of learning, as failure, as something to be ashamed of. But forgetting is actually an essential part of how we learn effectively. Your brain is constantly making decisions about what to keep and what to let go. If you remembered every single thing you ever experienced, every conversation, every sight, every sensation, your mind would be cluttered and overwhelmed. Forgetting is how your brain clears space for what truly matters. But here's the fascinating part. When you forget something and then relearn it, you remember it more strongly than if you had never forgotten it at all. It's like a path through a forest. The first time you walk it, you leave faint footprints. But if the path fades and you have to find your way again, you clear it more thoroughly. Each time you have to rebuild that memory, the path becomes wider and more permanent. This is why good learners don't panic when they forget things. They expect it. They plan for it. They know that reviewing material after you've partially forgotten it is one of the most powerful learning techniques available. So when you're learning a new skill and you realize you've forgotten something you learned last week, don't be frustrated. See it as an opportunity. Relearning that information now will make it stick far better than if you had remembered it perfectly all along. Forgetting is not a failure of learning. It's a feature of learning. Our fifth insight is beautifully simple. Teaching someone else speeds up learning. There's an old saying, to teach is to learn twice. When you prepare to teach something to another person, your brain does something remarkable. It reorganizes the information, looks for gaps in understanding, and creates connections you hadn't noticed before. Think about a time when you tried to explain something you thought you understood well. Maybe you were helping a friend with a recipe, or showing a coworker how to use a software program. As you explained it, you probably noticed things you hadn't fully grasped yourself. You might have even said, I never really thought about why we do it that way. This is called the protégé effect. When you're responsible for someone else's learning, your own learning deepens. You're more motivated, more focused, and more thorough. You anticipate questions. You think about the material from different angles. You don't even need a real person to teach. Some learners talk to imaginary students, explaining concepts out loud to an empty room. Others write detailed explanations as if teaching someone through text. The act of organizing your thoughts to teach forces you to truly understand the material, not just recognize it. So when you're learning something new, don't just passively absorb it. At some point, pause and imagine explaining it to someone who knows nothing about the topic. What would you say first? What examples would you use? What questions might they ask? This simple mental exercise can transform surface-level familiarity into deep, lasting understanding. Let's explore our sixth insight. Emotion makes learning stick. You probably remember exactly where you were during certain emotional moments of your life. Your first day of school. An important celebration. A moment of surprise or joy or even sadness. These memories are vivid and detailed, while ordinary days blur together and fade. This happens because emotion acts like a highlighter in your brain. When you experience something with strong emotion, your brain releases chemicals that essentially say, "This is important. Remember this." The memory gets tagged as significant and stored more deeply. This is why storytelling is such a powerful teaching tool. A dry fact might slip away, but a story that makes you feel something, that makes you curious or amused or moved, that story stays with you. The emotion carries the information along with it. When you're learning a new skill, finding ways to connect it to emotion can dramatically improve your retention. Maybe you're learning a language because you want to connect with your grandparents, or learning to cook because you have warm memories of family meals. That emotional connection isn't just nice to have. It's actually creating stronger neural pathways, making the learning stick more firmly. Even manufactured emotion can help. If you're learning something that seems dry or boring, try to find ways to make it interesting to you personally. Create silly songs about the material. Imagine absurd scenarios. Make yourself laugh. Get curious about weird details. Any emotion, even playful silliness, will help cement that information in your memory far better than emotionless repetition ever could. Our seventh insight reveals something important about timing. The brain learns faster with immediate feedback. Imagine learning to shoot a basketball, but you're blindfolded and someone only tells you whether you made the basket 10 minutes later. It would be almost impossible to improve, wouldn't it? You need to see where the ball went right away while the feeling of that throw is still fresh in your muscles and mind. This is true for all kinds of learning. The faster you get feedback, the faster you learn. When there's a long delay between action and feedback, your brain struggles to connect them. It's like trying to adjust a recipe when you can't taste the food until the next day. Immediate feedback works because your brain is still holding the context of what you just did. You can compare what you intended with what actually happened. You can notice the subtle differences. You can adjust and try again while everything is still fresh. This is why interactive learning is so powerful. When you're actively doing something and getting instant results, you're creating a tight feedback loop. Press a piano key, hear the sound immediately. Write a line of code, see it run right away. Speak a phrase in a new language, hear if it sounds right. When you're teaching yourself a new skill, look for ways to get immediate feedback. Don't wait days to check your work. Don't practice in isolation for weeks before testing yourself. Build quick feedback into your practice. The tighter you can make that loop between doing and knowing how you did, the faster your brain will learn and adjust.
Let's explore our eighth insight. Multisensory learning improves retention. Your brain doesn't have just one way of storing information. It has many. Visual memory, auditory memory, kinesthetic memory, even smell and taste memory. Each sense creates its own pathway, its own set of connections. And when multiple senses are involved in learning, you create multiple pathways to the same information. Think about learning to bake bread. You could read about it in a book just using your visual sense. But when you actually bake, you see the dough, feel its texture changing as you knead, smell the yeast activating, hear the crust crackling as it bakes, and finally taste the finished bread. Each of these sensory experiences creates its own memory, and together they form a rich, interconnected web of understanding. This is why hands-on learning is so effective. It's why people say, "I'm a visual learner," or "I learn by doing." What they're really noticing is that engaging more senses creates stronger memories. You can use this principle even when learning abstract concepts. If you're learning about history, don't just read. Look at photographs and maps. Listen to music from that era. If possible, visit museums or historical sites where you can see and touch artifacts. If you're learning mathematics, don't just read equations. Draw diagrams. Move objects around. Speak the concepts out loud. The more senses you can involve in learning,
the more hooks your brain has to grab onto that information later. It's like tying a memory down with multiple ropes instead of just one. Even if one sensory pathway fades, the others can help you retrieve what you learned. Our ninth insight is particularly fitting for this moment. Sleep is when learning gets locked in. While you're awake and learning, your brain is making temporary connections like sketching in pencil. But something remarkable happens while you sleep. Your brain replays what you learned during the day, strengthening important connections and pruning away what doesn't matter. Those pencil sketches get traced over in permanent ink. During deep sleep, your brain is extraordinarily active, moving information from short-term storage into long-term memory. It's organizing, categorizing, and integrating new information with what you already know. In many ways, you learn more while sleeping than while awake. This is why you've probably had the experience of struggling with a problem, going to sleep, and waking up with the solution clear in your mind. Your sleeping brain was working on it, making connections you couldn't see while conscious. There's even specific research showing that if you learn something new and then sleep, you'll remember it better than if you stay awake for the same amount of time. Sleep isn't wasted time. It's not time away from learning. It's an essential part of the learning process itself. This is also why it's more effective to study over several days with sleep in between than to cram everything into one long session. Each night of sleep is another opportunity for your brain to process and consolidate. Each morning you wake up, the learning is more stable, more integrated, more truly yours. So as you rest here now, know that your brain is doing important work, strengthening and organizing everything you've learned recently, preparing you to learn even more effectively tomorrow. Our final insight for this segment brings us full circle. Confidence speeds learning. This might seem obvious, but the mechanism is worth understanding. When you believe you can learn something, your brain actually works differently than when you doubt yourself. Confidence isn't just a feeling. It changes the physical process of learning. When you approach a new skill with confidence, you're more likely to persist when things get difficult. You interpret struggles as part of the process rather than as signs of failure. You take risks, try new approaches, and experiment. All of these behaviors accelerate learning. But when you lack confidence, you become cautious. You stick to what you already know. You avoid challenges. You interpret difficulties as confirmation that you can't do it. Your brain goes into a protective mode rather than a growth mode. The interesting thing is that confidence can be built. You don't have to wait until you're good at something to feel confident. You can start by being confident in your ability to learn, even if you're not yet confident in your ability to perform. This is called growth mindset. Instead of thinking, I can't do this, you think, I can't do this yet. That one word, yet, implies confidence in your ability to learn and grow. It opens up possibilities instead of closing them down. When you're learning something new, pay attention to your internal dialogue. Notice when you're being harsh or doubtful with yourself. Gently shift that voice to something more supportive. Treat yourself the way you treat a good friend who's learning something difficult. That kindness and confidence isn't just being nice to yourself. It's actually creating better conditions for your brain to learn. And so we've journeyed through 10 insights about how we learn. The brain's love of patterns. The power of short sessions. The value of struggle and forgetting. The importance of teaching, emotion, and feedback. The richness of multisensory experience. The essential role of sleep. And finally, the surprising power of confidence. Let these ideas settle gently into your awareness. There's no need to hold on to them tightly. Just let them rest there like seeds planted in good soil, ready to grow when the time is right. Thanks for watching this video. See you next time.